Good morning, everyone. Make sure your cameras are on, please, before we start. Sam, you're sideways. Give me 1 second. Cameras, please. So now you can't hear me? All right, we got Marta, Juan, Yanitza, Ophelia, Sanady that can't hear me. Can you hear me now? Oh, no? Okay. Reza, hi. We have Sam, Celine, Tiana. Good morning, Tiana. Okay. Alexis and Clenard. Great. YouTubers, whoever's watching, good morning. I had a good morning here from Jen. So whoever's watching, good morning. Okay, so maybe I charge more for kids in the class. So you guys have any questions regarding the previous chapter or no? Agency is big. It's heavily tested. Actually, I was just talking about that with um, a student right now that fortunately did not pass the state exam, but it was really, really close. But where were the issues? One of them was agency, right? So make sure you guys study chapter 11. Business practices, the next one we're going to talk right after this one, is another one that's very heavy tested. So make sure you guys study, ask as many questions as you can. If you want to pass, some chapters you really, really, really need to ask questions. All right, so Nady says, my kids saved me. There you go. Why do we have kids? It's literally for this, right? All right, cool. All right, so got 3 people watching. That's a good thing on YouTube. And I got you Zoomers. Today we're going to talk about listing agreements. Is just an overview, and then we have the state portion as well. But listing agreements. My first question to you guys, especially after yesterday, I think you guys should know right now. Hey, Rose, good morning. You guys should know right now. When we're dealing with a listing, who are we dealing with? When we're dealing with listings, who are we dealing with? Let me know in the chat. Let me know, guys. Who are we dealing with? When we're dealing with listings, who are we dealing with? Don't write brokers because we are part of the brokerage, so no. See? Got brokers, seller and buyer rental, sellers, brokers, the client, agency. Okay. So, again, this clearly tells me that yesterday's chapter was not very clear. All right. And it's important for you guys to really go over this. Okay. So I did say yesterday, and it's okay, right? But I did say yesterday that listings, right? You're dealing with the seller. Because listing is when you're putting a property for advertisement. Remember I talked about Walmart's? You're putting a property for advertisement. You're just listing the property. Okay? You're dealing with the seller. For you to deal with buyers, guys, that means you're a selling broker. You're the one that brings the buyer to conclude the sale. Remember that? All right. So again, very important. No, Rose is not contracts. Listings are listings agreements. Contracts are offers. All right. So Celine, it's not agency. Alexis is not client. It could be, but that depends if we are working as a seller's agent or are we working as a transaction broker. You guys remember the difference between these? All right, then let me know in the chat. What's the difference between being the seller's agent or being a transaction broker? What is the difference? One that advertises? No. Come on, guys. What is the difference between being a seller's agent? What is the difference between a seller's agent and being a transaction broker? Bruno, it's too early to ask questions. Move on. Okay. Celine says transaction broker represents no one. Correct. All right. So if you're the seller's agent, then you clearly represent the seller. If you're a transaction broker, you facilitate the transaction. You don't represent, you're just trying to help them get all the way to the end. All right. So it's pretty much, think about it this way, it's pretty much the difference of me being the instructor or you being here and another student helping you out. They're still helping you, right? But they're not liable for whatever they say. Does that make sense? Still helping you. They're trying to get you to where you need to go. But the one that's liable is the instructor. So whatever I say, right, whatever I teach, I'm liable for that. If somebody helps you, like go over a question, the homework or whatever, hey, no liabilities. Like a transaction broker is the same thing. But you guys need to know the difference. Both of these forms of agency, both of these forms of agency could list the property. It's just how we're operating with a client or customer. That's the difference. How are we operating with a client or customer? So if we have a listing agreement, that means that we have a seller that wants to sell a property. We have a listing agreement, we have a seller that wants to sell a property. They could sell it with exclusive representation, right? Seller's agent, right? And then you're the agent for the seller, right? They hired you. Or they could list it or advertise it with a transaction broker. That means you're now acting only as a facilitator, okay? All right, so let's look at the legal foundations. So the other day, we talked about contract law, and yesterday we talked about agency law. And we did say the listing agreements were a mix of both. Why? Because a listing agreement defines the type of agency relationship that we're going to have, right? Just like a contract for purchase defines the type of agency relationship we're going to have, right? And it falls under contract law because, look, for you to get into a listing agreement, you must be competent parties, right? You must do this voluntarily, so we have a clear understanding of all the terms, so mutual acceptance or offer and acceptance, mutual consent, right? And it has to be for a legal purpose. So the essentials of a contract are going to be in this agreement. So it's a mix of both. It talks about agency law and talks about contract law in the listing agreements. Okay? So again, agency law because it defines the roles of the parties involved, what people can expect from us, fiduciary duties, and what is our authority given by the seller in this case. The principal parties to the contract are listing broker and the client. The client may be the buyer, seller, landlord, or tenant in the proposed transaction. And legally, the broker is the client's agent. You guys already know this. The broker is the agent of the seller. We are sub-agents of the seller because we're agents of the broker, right? All right. Fiduciary duties, that's cold. What does cold mean, guys? C-O-A-L-D. Does everybody know what cold means? Let me know in the chat. These are your basic duties when representing somebody. Your basic duties when representing somebody. Cold. C-O-A-L-D. Celine says, care, obedience, accounting. Two more. Don't look at your notes. Go and say it. Just put it out there. Loyalty. Great. One more. Disclosure. So your fiduciary duties to the client are cold, care, obedience, accounting, loyalty, and disclosure. You must care enough to obey lawful instructions. You must care enough to hold proper accounting. You must care enough to be loyal, right? And care to disclose because it will affect people in the transaction, right? So that is cold. Care, obedience, loyalty, and disclosure. Okay, under contract law, you guys know there's bilaterals and unilateral agreements. Right? Bilateral and unilateral. Lateral means side. Bilateral agreement, it's a two-sided agreement. Unilateral is a one-sided agreement. So, in the listing, are we talking about being bilateral or unilateral? Listing agreement. Is it bilateral or unilateral? Let me know in the chat. a listing agreement is bilateral or unilateral? Correct, guys. It's bilateral. The reason why it's bilateral is because you're going to do something and the other party must do something. Okay? Now, that's because most listings have an agreement. The only listing that is unilateral is open listing. The open listing simply means, hey, if you bring me a buyer, right, but there's no commitment. If you bring me a buyer, there's no commitment. In the exclusive agency agreement or exclusive right to sell agreement, which is the normal agreements that we get into, these are bilateral because they're saying seller will pay and you're going to work to find a buyer. That's it. So they will pay as soon as you find a buyer. Okay? So in an open listing, there's no promises, no obligations, nothing. That's why it makes it unilateral. But the majority of them are bilateral agreements. Two parties make promises. The seller promises to pay a commission if a buyer is produced, right? Validity. A listing agreement must meet the requirements of a valid contract. Like I said, the competent parties, offer and acceptance, consideration, and legal purpose. Okay. The legal form of a listing could be oral or written. But let me ask you something. Can we rely on oral agreements? See, do all contracts have to be in writing? No, right? So it's very difficult to rely on oral agreements. That's why New Jersey, for instance, says, we're not going to address in New Jersey, we're just saying in general, but for instance, New Jersey says, hey, it's okay for you to put a listing verbally, but you got 5 days to put it in writing, be enforceable. Within those 5 days, if you find a buyer, the seller doesn't have to pay you commission if they don't want to. You don't have a listing agreement, right? So many states consider that only a written listing will be enforceable, particularly in the exclusive right to sell listing. In practice, as I was just saying, a broker should get every listing in writing and make sure it clearly states that the broker is authorized to do and how the broker will be paid. An oral listing is enforceable, even if enforceable, limits the broker's ability to remedy the problem. Again, hearsay, he said, she said, it's very difficult. So a contested oral listing must be supported by considerable evidence. I have to have enough proof that it is, there was an agreement between us for me to list your property, so you gave me authorization, right? And if I found a buyer, that you would pay me. A broker may not be able to sue the principal for damages incurred under an oral lease. And if the client dies, the broker may not be able to obtain compensation for a successfully performed oral listing. An express listing. Right, we talked about this in contracts, express contracts or implied contracts. An express listing, right, verbal or written, manifestly authorizes the broker to pursue certain actions for the clients. Clients and agents may also create an implied agency listing, right, based on substantive actions rather than expressed agreements. So the difference between expressed or implied, the difference between them, very simple. It's either I told you what I was going to do or my actions show you what I intend to do. So implied is based on actions. Okay? We didn't say we're going to do this or we're going to do that. We just implied based on our actions. And you expected as a seller or as a buyer or whatever, you expect, oh, okay, he's doing this, so he's going to go do that as well, right? So you start developing expectations, and that's based on implication, okay? It's implied. Now, there's different types of listing agreements. There's the exclusive, And exclusive simply means one agency, okay? And open means many agencies, okay? So there's exclusive right to sell, there's exclusive agency, and then there's open listing. This last one, net listing, is illegal, so I'll address it later. But right now, we're going to focus on exclusive right to sell and exclusive agency. To make it simple, in an open listing, like I said, means many, right? In an open listing, I like to compare this to an open relationship. What is an open relationship? Well, we're not. Oh, some of you are smiling already. All right, means we're not committed to each other, right? And I'm sorry for the vulgar words, but literally you're just bouncing around, and wherever you feel like going next, you go, right? And everybody's okay with that. It's an open relationship. Well, guess what? In open listing, it's pretty much the same thing. So, Marta, let's say you're with Remax. I go talk to you and I say, hey, Marta, if you have anybody that wants my property, right? I'm the seller that wants my property, let me know. Like, no commitment. I didn't sign anything. I didn't promise anything. I just said, if you know anybody. I go to Yanitza, and by the way, I'm going by the order that I have you on the screen. I'm going to go to Yanitza and say, Yanitza, she's with Century 21. I say, Yanitza, listen, if you know anybody that wants to buy my property, let me know. That's it, right? And I'm going to go to Reza. I'm going to say, hey, listen, you're with ERA, so if you have anybody. So I'm knocking on several doors. I'm not making commitment to any of them. And whoever performs, whoever brings a buyer, gets paid. If they don't, no harm, no foul. You guys understand? So it's the same thing as an open relationship. Everybody's in agreement and understanding that there's others. That's it. Okay? That's an open listing. In an exclusive agency, I like to compare this to being engaged. Okay? See, open relationship, everybody's game and we're okay with that. Everybody understands that, right? When you're engaged, you're committed to that one person, but you're still not married, right? Easy. All right, I saw some faces already. Let me explain. What I'm explaining here is that you still did not get to the altar. You're still not there. You still did not tie the knot. That means there's still a chance, without many complications, there's still a chance that you get there and walk away. Nope. Sorry, not getting married. All right? So you're engaged. You're committed. You're like with that one person or one agency in this case. But let's say all the way to the day of the marriage, right? We find our own buyer. I'm the seller, and I found my own buyer, and it's Nidia. Nidia's the buyer. I bring Nidia. Nidia buys the property from me, right? Because I found a buyer, the same as an open listing, these two, because I, the seller, found the buyer. I don't have to pay any commission. So it's like being engaged. We get to the altar and bounce. That's it. I had until that day to leave. That's it. So I can find my own buyer and not have to pay you. And then comes the marriage. Okay? Marriage is a little complicated. The exclusive right to sell is a little complicated. It's again exclusive, like being engaged. It's that one person. In this case, the one agency, right? It's Remax only, right? As an example. The thing is, if I decide to bounce from a marriage, there's consequences, right? Now you're married. Like in an open relationship or engaged, you can always walk away and minimal to no consequences. In the marriage, you guys heard the term several times, and I'm sure that there must be one for the male side as well, but I'm sorry if I offend you, but it's just for the point. Cheaper to keep her, right? That sentence, cheaper to keep her. Why? Because marriage comes with consequences, all right? So, let's say exclusive right to sell. And the seller right? Let's say I'm married to, let's see, who am I going to marry? Real quick, Ophelia. Don't worry, we'll get divorced in a second. Tiana says my husband said the same thing. What, cheaper to keep her? Hey. Anyway, but the other way around too. Depending if who's the breadwinner, depending on who has all the assets. The other way around too. Tell him he doesn't get away just like that. Okay. But anyway, Ophelia, I'm gonna marry you, but I'll divorce you right after. Okay, it's just for the example. Is that okay? Let me know if it's okay. Cool. So I'm gonna marry you right now. What does this mean? I'm the seller, you're the agent, and we open up an exclusive right to sell, right? But then along the way, along the 6 months that we have the listing, you're supposed to find me a buyer, right? I'm married to you, only you, committed to you, right? So you're supposed to find me a buyer. But all of a sudden, I found Juan, and Juan wants to buy, right? He's a friend of mine. I've known him for a couple of years, and wants to buy. Or Ophelia, you don't know Juan. Juan does not know you, right? So technically, just like in these ones, I should be able to sell to him. That's it, right? The answer is yes, I can sell to Juan, but, Ophelia, because we are married, right? If I'm trying to bounce from this relationship, and that's what it is, I still have to pay you the commission. All right? That's why I compare these two relationships. Because in an open relationship, everybody's understanding. If you find somebody, you find somebody. If not, we'll just keep on going around. Once you find that one, you're engaged, but you're still not married, so you still have a chance to find a buyer through your own efforts, seller, right? But once you're married, that's it. Whatever I do, you do. Whatever you do, I do. Therefore, you still get paid. That's what it is. In an exclusive right to sell, no matter who sells the property, no matter who sells the property, whether it's the agent or the seller, the agency still gets paid. In an exclusive agency, it's one agency only, but if the seller sells instead of the agent, the seller does not have to pay commission. In an open listing, I only pay commission if you bring anyone. That's it. You know what's the funniest thing, guys, about watching you guys? That, for instance, Tiana, your husband never sits down. He sat down to hear about the marriage part, of course, and all that stuff. It's funny. Anyway, again, you guys need to know the difference between these two, okay? Exclusive means one agency only. That you're exclusive, you're committed to that one agency. Open listing, there's no commitment. You're just knocking on doors, and whoever has a buyer, that's it, right? So now, prenup, that's it. There you go, prenup. So with that being said, Tiana and Tiana's husband, with that being said, every listing agreement also has an escape clause. Just saying. If you're not performing, if you're not doing your spouse duties in exclusive right to sell, we can walk away. In exclusive agency, same thing. Okay? By the way, before you guys get offended, because I see the guys are very serious, the ladies are like, some are smiling, some are like, Bruno, come on, what are you doing? All right? This goes both ways, okay? I said spouse, I didn't say wife. Okay, so this goes both ways. All right, just want to make sure. Some of you get real serious when I make my comments. All right, so what is the difference between exclusive right to sell and exclusive agency? Whether you have to pay the broker or not. That's the difference. In both of them, you're dealing with one agency. I'm going to repeat this a bunch of times. In both of them, you're dealing with one agency. Simple. In one of them, you're dealing with many agencies. Okay? In these two, you might not have to pay at all. In this one, no matter what you do, you have to pay. Okay? My question is, which one of these do you think is best for the client? Which one of these is best for the seller? Let me know. Is it exclusive right to sell? Is it exclusive agency? Or open listing? Which one of these is the best for the seller? Tiana's husband, stay here for this one. You're gonna love it. Stay. Don't go anywhere. You're gonna love this one. Guys, I know we are in 2020. I know things are a little different. But you guys are all up for open relationships, including Tiana that has a husband right next to her? Just saying. If you think this is the best thing for the seller because they can go around, knock on doors, right? And whoever's available is available, that's what you're saying, right? Then sure. Just so you know, your names are all over the internet right now as people that are up for open listings, okay? You killed it with this one. It was so good, Sam. It was so good until you said 4 agents. It was so good. Leonard says exclusive agency, open for the seller. You screwed up right there. You were so good over here. I asked for the seller, not for the agents. What's up with these people? Open relationship all day, like so many. I never had so many show up. Unbelievable. All right. So Tiana's husband, you guys can have a serious conversation after this, okay? Something is going on there. I'm just saying. Ooh, you're in trouble. All right. Anyway, so now on the serious note, I'm just joking. On the serious note, hey Lula just joined us. Morning. So on a serious note, which one is the best for the seller? You have to understand one thing. I explained to you guys that one comes with no commitment. Open relationship. You guys really think that an open listing is the one with the best, that's best for the seller when there's no commitment? How much effort do you think, I gave the example of Marta, Yanitza, Reza, how much effort do you think they're going to put into showing my property or finding a buyer to my property, knowing that there's no commitment? Do you think they're going to pay for marketing? Do you think they're going to put on Facebook, Craigslist, they're going to put on the MLS, they're going to spend money on something that there's no commitment? That's insane. How is an open listing good for the seller? Oh, because if they find a buyer, they don't have to pay? Is that it? There's no exposure. It limits the exposure of the property. It limits the person. When there's an open listing, it feels like, oh, wait a minute, it's an open listing, so it could go everywhere, right? No. In an open listing, we don't put on the MLS, because for you to advertise on the MLS, it has to be something that's yours. It's your product. It's your exclusivity. And I can say, hey, listed. In an open listing is, hey, if you know of anybody that wants to buy a cell phone, let me know. And I'm talking to a bunch of people. So yes, I talk to a bunch of people, but how many people do I need to talk to reach the same level as an MLS representation, for instance? Because these two, they can go on the MLS. And look, I'm the seller, right? I'm the seller. There's 17, 20, 21 people here right now at this moment. 21 people between YouTube and you guys. 21 people. How many, like if I go knock on every door, if I go talk to you guys, right? Imagine right now I'm on a camera and I'm reaching all of you. But imagine I went door to door. I go to your house, or I call you, Marta, listen, I have a phone for sale. If you know anybody, let me know. Yanitza, I have a phone for sale. If you have anybody, let me know. And I go every single one. How long is it going to take me to reach all 21 people? You understand what I'm saying here? Open listing is no commitments. Now, let's assume Zoom right now, or in YouTube, let's assume this is the MLS. And I'm the agent. Well, I'm just broadcasting right now to everyone. I broadcast to everyone. Guys, I have the power to do so because it's the MLS. I'm the one listing. You cannot have multiple people on Zoom or MLS for this scenario broadcasting the same thing. There's different channels, right? But you are part of my network. You guys are realtors. And I'm saying, hey, realtors, if you have buyers for this phone, right, let me know. So in exclusive agency, I don't have to go knock on every single door. I broadcast already to all of you at once. And whoever is an agent that has a client that's interested in this type of phone, oh yeah, because that's the other thing. That's the other part of it. I'm knocking on all these doors, 21 people, knocking on all these doors. How many of you really have a buyer for this? So I might be wasting my time with probably 70%, 80% of you. Because you don't deal with buyers that have interest in this type of phone. You guys understand? Where exclusive agency, again, we broadcast, and whoever's already looking for this type of phone receives that broadcast, right? Receives that, oh, new alert, phone available, Samsung available, great, I want it, right? My buyer, I have this buyer, that buyer, they want it. So instead of reaching 20 people individually, I reach 20 people all at once, and each one of them have 2 or 3 people interested in buying something similar to this. So now I just went to 60 people, right? I just went to 60 people almost in a matter of seconds. You guys understand this, the difference, right? So open listing, barely any exposure, barely any commitment. Because look, if I know somebody, if somebody asks me, maybe, but I'm not going to put it out there. I'm not going to advertise. Exclusive agency, there's already some type of commitment, but like I said, there's no full commitment because I know if I put a lot of money into marketing and then all of a sudden you sit down at the kitchen table with your cousin and your cousin says, hey, I want to buy your house, right? Here I am spending for you to go ahead and sell the property to somebody else and I get nothing. You guys understand? So you're engaged, but we're still not 100% committed. For those of you that are married, hopefully it's a great marriage. Some of you, I just had doubts like a couple minutes ago. But hopefully it's a great marriage. Isn't that where we fully committed? Right? I'm not saying that engaged we're not. But there's always that chance of walking away. Here, kind of like, yeah, we're going to do this. This is serious now. Like, yeah, there's a ring. We're going to, yeah, moving forward. At this point, we have a lot to lose. I'm dealing with you for the rest of my life because I have a lot to lose. It's not what I have to gain with you. It's like what I have to lose. I'm just kidding. But I want you guys to understand that. When there's marriage, there's the commitment, right? So exclusive right to sell means that we're fully committed to each other, and no matter what, I, agency, will get paid. All right? Because we have a common effort. I am working for you, and you understand that, and I understand that. And I will put all my effort into this to maximize the exposure of the property. Okay? You guys understand that? Who will still go for open listing? Nobody? I had so many. Hey, Jackie, I see you there. You guys good? Did you guys understand it? Okay, so the most common, by the way, is exclusive right to sell. It's the most common type of listing for these reasons, the maximum exposure. And that's where you guys can also ask for the maximum commission because you're putting way more into it. If you're on exclusive agency, they start dropping the value. If you want open listing, some agents, what they do is they charge you just a flat fee, depending on what they're doing. There's no real commitment, but I need some type of compensation, right? Some type of benefit. All right? So when we're talking about exclusive right to sell, that's the marriage that I said. Therefore, if a buyer is procured, so if you find a buyer, it's procured during the listing period, the broker is entitled to a commission regardless of who is the procuring cause. Regardless of who's the procuring cause. Still get paid. That's it. Exclusive agency, next page, exclusive agency is that engaged, right? We're not 100%, like we still didn't tie the knot. We just made the promise to each other, but didn't tie the knot, right? So, an exclusive agency listing authorizes a single broker to sell the property and earn a commission, but leaves the owner the right to sell the property without the broker's assistance, in which case no commission is owed. Thus, if any party other than the owner is procuring the procuring cause in a completed sale of a property, including another broker, the contractor broker has earned a commission. This arrangement may also be used for a leasing transaction. If any party other than the owner procures the tenant, the owner must compensate. And then open listing means exactly what it says. It's non-exclusive. So, whoever is the first to perform, meaning bringing a buyer, right? Whoever is the first, they're entitled to commission. However, if the transaction happens without a broker, no commissions are payable. Okay? So again, open listing, non-exclusive, just like an open relationship. We understand that. Okay? Exclusive agency, we're engaged. We're kind of committed, just you and me. But if I find a buyer through my own efforts, I don't have to pay you. An exclusive right to sell, no matter what, because we're married. No matter what, I have to pay you. Period. Or vice versa, whoever is the listing agent. And then net listing. Net listing is illegal in most states. Illegal in most states. It lends itself to fraud. Why? Because it's not in the seller's best interest. Net listing is simply saying, right here, sorry. So net listing is simply saying the seller wants $75,000 for the property, right? Right? And you go to the seller and say, hey, $75,000, that's what you want net, that's what you want to take home? Cool, no problem. Can I get the commission? Anything above that is my commission. Can I do that? So I'm not asking for a percentage. I'm not asking for a flat fee. What I'm saying is anything above the $75,000, my commission. Is that okay? If the seller says yes, and the property sold for $83,000, then the broker receives the difference. $8,000 commission on a $75,000 property. Right? There's nothing wrong in asking for almost 10%. There's nothing wrong with that. You can ask for 50%. Commissions are negotiable, right? The thing is that the seller is entitled to know upfront how much you're going to make. You want to charge 10%? Go ahead. Tell the seller, hey, listen, the listing is a 10% listing. Whatever I find, right? X amount of dollars, right? So it was $83,000. Got almost 10%, so $8,000, right? And the seller gets the rest. But at least they are fully aware up front of how much is going to cost this arrangement. So net listings generally are regarded as unprofessional, and many states have outlawed the net listings. The argument against net listing is that it creates a conflict of interest for the broker, because we're looking for the lowest price for the seller and the highest price property, so we can make that difference. So did we place the client first? Was the client's best interest served in this situation? No. Are you guys understand this? So net listing is illegal. 1000% illegal. All right. Transaction broker. Guys, what does transaction broker mean? Transaction broker, what does it mean? Danae says no agency. Alexis says non-agency relationship with seller or buyer. Danae says reps no one. Sam says helping with the transaction. Orphelia says no relationship. Neely says only deals with the transaction. Great. YouTubers, you're a little quiet today. Transaction broker. All right, Razor switched. Laptop, okay. So the question was transaction broker. So transaction broker, we're facilitators. That's why we need to know. Yep, that's it, Jack. It just represents a transaction. So in terms of agency, transaction broker is a non-agency relationship, right? Who's the one that wrote this exactly like Alexis? Copy paste is great, isn't it? Anyway, with the seller or buyer. The agent is not bound by fiduciary duties to either party. Nevertheless, transaction brokers enter into a binding agreements with buyers or sellers to complete the transactions. Such agreements may be exclusive or non-exclusive. Like conventional listings, the transaction brokerage agreement binds the principal to a compensation agreement if in the event that the broker procures a buyer, a property or a buyer. So regardless of you representing as a seller's agent or representing as a transaction broker, so the transaction only, you still get paid, right? So that does not determine the compensation. It just determines the type of relationship that we have and what you can expect from me or not. Simple. All right, next page we have MLS, multiple listing service, or MLS, right? Now, we call this, or I call this at least, it's Craigslist for realtors. Why is it Craigslist for realtors? Because that's where we get to advertise to other realtors and even to the general public. How do you think Zillow and Trulia get the listings on their websites? Through whatever we put on the MLS. So we're the ones that advertise to the general public. As soon as we put on the listing on the MLS, it's sent out to all these different places, right? Within the MLS, it's now available to all the agents that participate in the MLS or multiple listing, right? And Zillow, Trulia, and other public sites, they take information from the MLS into their sites, okay? So it's like the Craigslist for realtors. That's where you advertise. Okay? All right, fulfillment and termination. Now, hopefully, the reason why we terminate the agreement is because you fulfilled the agreement, right? The listing agreement. Okay? That means you found a customer. Now, how do you complete? How do you find yourself in a position where you terminate the contract because it's you accomplished it, right? That means you found what's called a ready, willing, and able buyer. Who is someone that's ready, willing, and able? Well, it's someone who's ready and willing, meaning they agree to the terms of the transaction or the contract, and able, meaning they're financially capable of paying the price and legally capable of completing the transaction. So, ready to buy? I am. Willing to buy your property? I am. Am I able to buy? That's the other question, right? So ready, willing, and able. These are the requirements for you to successfully conclude a transaction. Somebody that's ready, willing, able. Okay? Simple as that. Right? Skipping this. Compensation. This is not important, right? We can skip this part, right? You guys don't care about this, right? Stay here, stay here. Okay, 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 okay. You don't have to yell at me. Yeesh. All right. So, the main item of performance for the client is the payment of compensation. If the agreement calls for it, a broker's compensation is earned and payable when the broker has performed according to the agreement. The amount and structure of compensation, potential disputes over who has earned a commission, and the client's liability for multiple commissions are other matters that a listing agreement should address. So the negotiated compensation may be in the form of a percentage of the sale or lease price or a flat fee. That depends on you and the client. Some people go there and say, hey, it's 6%, right? Let's say $300,000 listing, it's 6%. And people go like, oh, 6% is a lot. But then if you tell them, look, the max is going to be like $18,000. And they're okay with that, then boom, charge the flat fee, $18,000. Because 6% of 300 is 18,000. So people sometimes get scared because a lot of people, believe it or not, a lot of people don't understand percentages. They get scared. So give them a figure. Okay, give them a figure. Look, 18,000. They're like, oh, okay, I'm selling for 300,000, 18,000. I'm okay with that. I'm cool with that. That's all I'm paying. I'm cool with that. Some people, that's the way it is. So it could be percentage or flat fee. Procuring cause means that you are the first one to find and to put under contract. Okay? Procuring cause, being the procuring cause of a transaction. Procuring cause of a transaction means you were the first to find the customer and the first to put him into a contract. Okay? Why do we need to know the procuring cause? Because sometimes buyers, they decide to jump around because usually the buyers are in an open relationship. Like you're probably gonna feel like you got cheated on, right? You're gonna be like, what do you mean you went with somebody else, right? But if you didn't put in a exclusive buyer agreement, it's an open relationship, right? So they go around. If they go see the same property with another realtor, guess what? Who's the procuring cause? Is it you that showed the property the first time or the other realtor that put it under contract? So it becomes a little complicated when we go to arbitration and we try to defend our position. Well, but I showed the property first. And the other realtor goes like, yeah, but I put the contract first. Same client, same property, two different realtors, right? That sounds like a great trailer, right? Imagine. Same client, same property, two realtors. What will happen next? I'm telling you. Wild imagination, I know. So here's the thing. The question becomes, who took care of that client? Who followed up? All right? And I'm going to give you two examples. Not this right here, but I'm going to give you two examples. One of them is, let's say it's an open house. This happens a lot. And guys, before I say what I'm going to say, would you if you have babies, or if you have pets or whatever, right? Not that I'm putting in the same category, but if you have babies, if you have pets, would you let them wander around or roam around by themselves? Would you let them cross the street, go to the supermarket by themselves when they're like 2 years old, 3 years old, something like that? Would you? I don't think you would, right? And then he says, hell no, that's it. Who's going to put my audio back in the Zoom chat, right? Yeah, you wouldn't let your baby go. I know, I understand. So, you wouldn't, right? But this happens a lot. Just the other day, happened. Our office, we had an open house this weekend. And somebody walks in, she has a realtor, but walks in by herself. Now, luckily, our agents are trained not to steal. But, because that's the ethical thing to do, don't steal. But, this person walked in and started asking realtor hey, could you help me? Because mine does not help me. Mine does not do this. Mine does not do this. So she started complaining about the realtor that she had. All right? Think about it. What do you think is going to happen there? If you're not happy with your realtor, right? If you're not happy with your realtor because they're not following up, they're not showing you the listings, they're not going around with you, they never have the time, whatever it might be. If you're not following up with your clients, at the end of the day, if our realtor, as an example, if our realtor at the New Direction Realty, if he decided to say, oh, well, I'm really sorry for you that that's happening to you. If you really want me to help you, I will. If our realtor does that and the person, okay, you help me, great. Did we steal? If that really happened, did we steal? Think about that one. Let me know in the chat. Like any relationship, if you're not nurturing it, did we steal? The answer is no, we didn't, right? So the key when we go to arbitration, is follow-up, okay? So this person went by him or herself, right? Now here's the second scenario that might happen, right? The same thing, open house as an example. They go in to see the property, right? They really like the property. Like I'm the one that showed the property, right? As an example, right? And then 2 days later, I receive an offer for that person that I showed the property, but I receive an offer from a realtor that never came to see the property. If they were never at the property, are they the procuring cause? Are they the ones entitled to commission just because they're putting a contract? Anybody? What do you guys think? Are they the procuring cause? Again, the clients came to the open house. I showed the property, but then 2 days later I receive an offer, right, from a realtor that never saw the property. Are they the procuring cause? Come on, give me answers. By the way, procuring cause is reason why the transaction happened. Put it like that. Are they the reason for the transaction? Are they the ones that found the buyer? Jen says yes. What do you guys think? Lean says yes, or Phyllis says yes. Alexis, yo no hablo español. Like, see, I don't know. Anyway, the point is, no, they're not the procuring cause. So you're telling me, okay, no attitude, Sinead. Okay, I see that. So you're telling me that I can just literally sit back, relax, and tell all my buyers to just go see properties, go to open houses, and I'll put an offer later? What a lazy realtor that I am. Right? Of course not. I have to participate in the transaction in order to earn my commission. It's not just, hey, you want to buy? All right, there's an open house over there. Go. If you like it, come back. I'll put a contract. I'll wait for you. I'm looking. I'm seeing you. Really? That's what you guys just answered. The answer is no. You cannot put a contract on something that you did not see. As a realtor, how can you advise the client on what's the best offer if you don't even know what the property looks like? Tell me. Okay, these are things to consider. Okay. Compensation for buyer's brokers. So brokers agency agreements stipulate how the agent will be compensated in the relationship, and compensation may be a client paid retainer fee or a commission contingent upon completion of transaction or procured seller. It is common practice for the agent to be paid by the customer to the transaction, which is the seller, as opposed to the fiduciary principle. So if you represent the buyer, the seller usually, usually pays for the commission, right? In addition, agent may be paid by the buyer in the event that the seller or listing agent refuses to offer compensation to the buyer's broker. So sometimes it happens, for instance, in the for sale by owner, sometimes it happens where we have to say, hey, buyer, seller's not paying for it, so it's on you, right? So sometimes that happens and it's okay. It's not normal. 99% of the times it's going to be the seller paying the commission, but there are instances where buyer has to come up with money to pay the buyer's broker. All right? That's why we can never say to somebody that wants to buy a house, we can never go to them and say, hey, it's free for you. No. We cannot say that it's free. We can say to be no cost, but we cannot say it's free. There's a difference between no cost and free, right? So, believe me, there is a difference. But it's worth saying there's no cost to you. It's not a free service, but there's no cost for you because usually the seller pays, right? So you might not have to pay at all. Only in an instance where the seller refuses to pay, which is rare, Mr. Buyer or Mrs. Buyer, right, is when you have to come up with an extra amount of compensation. Okay. Hey, Ruth. Good morning. All right. So a listing agreement may terminate based on any of these grounds. So performance, that means we did what you needed to do. Infeasibility, that means it's impossible to continue. Like infeasibility, like there's no way we can continue with this transaction. Something happened, whatever. Mutual agreement, both agree to cancel. Revocation, that means one of the party cancels, but there might be liability if you, the realtor, cancels, or if the seller cancels, there might be liability or compensation to be paid. Abandonment, breach, lapse of time, so expires, invalidity of contract, incapacitation or death of either party, involuntary title transfer, or even destruction of the property. I mean, this is a common sense. These two, right? If the property is no longer, right? If the property is no longer, then what are we listing? So it terminates the agreement. Okay, most states do not require that open listings have a stated expiration date. So open listing is, hey, if you find one, you find, but that's it. It's very open. But most listings have to have a specific termination date. Those will be exclusive agency or exclusive right to sell. They have to have a specific termination date. So I list today and the listing ends on May 17th. Okay? That's the 6-month listing. It ends on May 17th. Must be stated. And it cannot have any automatic renewal mechanism. So we cannot say, hey, it's a 6-month listing. If you don't cancel, automatically renews for another 6 months. For listings, it doesn't happen that way. We need to step up and say, hey, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, unfortunately, the market fluctuated and we need to adjust. Would it be okay for us to renew for another 6 months, right? Or another week or another month or whatever it is. Okay. Revocation by the client, like I said, you might still be able to collect commission. I already covered that. If the broker has not fully performed prior to the revocation, right, in an exclusive right to sell, the client is liable for the broker's actual costs. So if the seller decides to walk away, but you already spent $500 in marketing, for instance, in flyers, whatever, so marketing pieces, flyers, websites, drone tours, whatever you did, then the seller is liable for the actual costs. In an exclusive agency, so we're engaged, right? If the property does not sell during the term, the client is liable for the broker's costs. In an open listing, well, No liability. If you paid for it, we were never committed anyway. If you paid for it, that's your loss. How it is. Okay, open listing. Revocation by the broker. So if you, the agent or the broker, walks away from the deal, from the listing, the client can also sue you for money damages if it was your fault that the property did not sell. Okay. Any questions on this, guys? Let me know if you have questions before I move forward. Questions, questions, questions. Okay. Questions? Cool. So we're going to go into listing agreement clauses. Basic stuff. Like I said, this is an overview. The listing agreement must include, obviously, the names of all the owners, the address or legal description of the listed property, the listing price, the expiration date, commission terms, and authority granted. So when you list the property, the listing agreement must state exactly what you're going to do so the seller is aware of the, again, expiration date, when it ends, how much they're going to get paid, and what are you authorized to do or not. Like, for instance, could be to put on the MLS. Can you put it on the MLS? Is it an exclusive right to sell, or is it exclusive agency, as an example? Okay. Okay. We already talked about that. Legal description. All right. The property must include a legal description. Who can tell me what are the 3 methods of legal description? 3 methods of legal description. Anybody? 3 methods of legal description. Did we cover them already? We did, right? I remember something. Then I gotta do so many classes that maybe it was a different class. I'm not sure. Did you guys do chapter 9 already? All right. There you go. Perfect. All right. Meets and bounds. Lot and block. Okay, there you go. Meets and bounds is one of them. Lot and block or plat method. Perfect. Ruth. Amazing. Government survey method, or also called rectangular survey system. Very good. All right, cool. So some states, they require that the listing includes the actual legal description. Okay, very good. Fixtures. This is key. Now, fixtures is anything that's fixed or affixed to the property. Kitchen cabinets, chandeliers, the plumbing fixtures, the light fixtures, for instance, the TVs are fixtures. So anything that's attached is a fixture. The question is it included with the listing, or is it excluded from the listing? So we have to ask in any scenario when we're listing a property, we have to ask Mr. and Mrs. Seller, what is included with the property or not, okay? You guys good? Fixtures. Can a dishwasher be a fixture? The question is it attached? Anything that's detached to the property is personal property. Anything that's attached to the property is a fixture. So, if the dishwasher is attached, because it has to, right? The water has to run, so it's attached to the plumbing fixtures as well. it could be considered a fixture. Okay, just like it's an appliance, just like the AC is an appliance. Can you remove the air conditioning? Central air, can you remove? You can. If it's listed as no AC, like we're removing, it's not included, right? Could be removed. Dishwashers might not be included. Okay. It's not normal for us to walk in. That's why people think what you see is what you get, right? But it's not normal for you to walk into a kitchen and you see, oh, there's a dishwasher, right? The fridge, everybody kind of has an understanding that fridges are not included. They're going to take it, right? But dishwashers, stoves, and all that, most people, when they walk through the house, they assume that these stay. Stove, the dishwasher, fridge, we got it. They might take it. If we really want it, we'll put an offer, say, hey, keep the fridge. Okay? But it is a common understanding that the other two are attached to the property. They're not just plugged. There's more attachment to it, right? Like the water line, the electrical, and the gas. So it becomes a fixture. Ruth is asking, if you're taking with you, you have to state it beforehand. Yes, that's what I'm saying. So if I don't want any of these items to be included, that's why we're talking about this. If I don't want any of these items to be included, then I have to exclude. I have to say what's excluded from the sale. Yep. And to make it easy, guys, what I would do, and I highly recommend, what I would do is when you walk through every single room, doesn't matter how ridiculous it is, right? Like I got TVs here on the wall, right? Ask the seller, hey, Mr. Seller or landlord, whatever, are these included in the sale? Some of them are going to look at you like, no, these are my TVs, right? No, not included, right? But what if? What if? Okay. I've seen scenarios where that's what they say. They say, everything that's in the house stays with the house. You want the furniture, keep the furniture. Like, we don't care. Just keep everything. There are scenarios like that. Okay? So you got to ask. Again, personal property. You want the furniture, keep the furniture. You want the kids? Take the kids. They're also here. Like, take them. You have a full packed house. That's what it is. That's how you got it, Tiana? You got the husband and the kid like that? There you go. The whole bundle. Got it. That's a great purchase of a house. You walk in and like, oh, husband, kid, house, furniture, perfect. Sold. I buy it. Terrible. I guess that's why it's called an open house. Oh, man. All right. Listing term is how long it's going to last. We already know that. Agent duties, you guys already know what you're supposed to do. Compensation, cooperation with other agents. You guys know you're obligated to cooperate with other agents, right? You cannot just say, oh, you're from Remax, you're not from New Direction Realty, so nope, I'm not working with you. I'm not showing house to you. Okay, so you have to cooperate with other brokers. That's very important. Okay. Dual agency, you guys already know by now, it was yesterday, right? That you have to disclose potential dual agencies. So if you intend to represent the buyer, you have to make sure that the buyer understands you represent the seller, and you have to make sure the seller understands that you represent the buyer, and they're okay with it, and you put it in writing. So we talked about that yesterday. Okay. We also talked about seller's property condition disclosure, right? I even played right after I played Not My Monkey by Terry Watson, right? Make sure the seller always writes this form, the seller's condition disclosure statement that says, hey, the roof, 5 years old. Mold, I have no idea. But let them fill it out themselves because they're the ones that know the property best. Okay? Once you have that filled out, a copy of the required notice to buyers must be attached or may be attached to the listing as part of the agreement. But make sure you always, always, always have it. Seller's title and deed. Of course, they promise to provide the property title in good condition. Hazard insurance or flood hazard insurance. If it's a property that's in a flood zone, gotta have insurance. And so on. Escrow, that's the money. You guys know this, you know this. Okay, notice to owner. Exclusive buyer agency clauses, it's exactly the same thing. It's exactly the same thing as exclusive seller agency. Same thing. It's just that instead of representing the seller exclusively, you represent the buyer exclusively. That's all it is. So the principal, instead of being the seller, the principal is the buyer. But again, these are things we covered yesterday. Principal is now the buyer. That means you uphold the buyer's best interest. Compensation. Again, compensation depends on who agreed to pay. It's not necessarily who hired you. It's who agreed to pay. Okay. So this is just repeating a couple of things. As much as I like this book better than the one I used to have before, as much as I like, because it's like straightforward in certain things, sometimes it's just redundant. Like it repeats a lot. I already told him this. I contacted the publisher, and some things are just, okay, we already said that like 5 minutes ago. So some of the stuff that I skip is because we're literally just covered. Okay, non-agency declaration. What does that mean? When you see non-agency, means you are transaction broker. If you are a transaction broker, do you represent the buyer? No, of course. So you do not represent the buyer. All you do is assist, offer information, or facilitate. You do not represent. We assist, offer information, or facilitate. That's it. Okay? All right. Do you guys have any questions regarding this chapter? It was a simple chapter, right? Now that you guys are well versed in agency, you guys understand agency 100% now? Questions? No questions? All right, guys, if there's no questions, then we're going to take a quick break. It's now 11:31. We're going 11:32, I'm sorry. We're going to be back at 11:45. So you got 13 minutes. Go enjoy some nice coffee, tea, run around, get your blood pumping, and we will be right back.